Hey, this is Jamey with Stonemeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated. Now, I want to clarify, I've played one game of this, and I'm filming this video now because I don't want to accidentally play more games of this game, has plenty of spoilers that I could reveal. I'm not going to reveal them. I'm just going to talk about things that I learned by reading the rulebook. So anything that you can learn right now by just reading the standard rulebook for the beginning of Clank Legacy. And obviously, I'm sure we'll unlock some really cool stuff later, but I don't want to accidentally spoil it later. So I'm filming it now, and I enjoyed my first play, so I have plenty of things that I can talk about. One is a little design thing that I want to mention. I thought they did a great job. So they have the rules in this rulebook, and at the bottom of each page, they have a little thing that highlights the rules that are different in Clank Legacy. This isn't, again, not a spoiler, just a standard thing there. Just a little thing at the bottom of the page that tells you, hey, these things are different. You might want to reread these things in the rules. I thought that was really helpful, especially for a legacy game built on an existing game that I know really well and that people who play this will probably know pretty well. So that's one of the things I really like about it. Another is that it just really fits the legacy format super, super well. So you can see here on the first page, I'm not going to show you all the first page, but over here is what the board looks like during the initial setup. So it's this board that has that Clank feel where you have kind of an overground underground, even though it's set on a horizontal plane. You're exploring like a fantasy land, essentially. But it has all these things that you can discover on it, just like Clank. You're walking through this kingdom. But with the legacy format, there are all these little numbers on here that I don't know if you can see them all that well, but some like right there's a number with a book on it, and it's basically saying when you get there, when you arrive there for the first time, read a passage from the book and see what happens. And oftentimes that changes something about the game or gives you something, gives you a task to do or something like that. But I think it just really works in this map format. I thought they did a great job of creating a template on which that you can build your story and discover your kingdom in a way that works mechanically really sound with the core game of Clank. It isn't really hard to understand. You're not learning new things, new rules all that often. You're just adding to this map. Really, really enjoyed that. It also adds a new type of card that I probably shouldn't talk about, because it is a very minor spoiler. You would find out before you even begin the first game. I won't talk about that. But the one thing that I do want to add that's a little different than core game of Clank is that there are things called event cards. So normally in Clank, when you have dragon cards will show up. When you have certain cards with a dragon icon on them, they'll show up, and that means that you have to draw out of the dragon bag. You have to fill up Clank tokens in the bag for the dragon and draw tokens out of it. And other cards sometimes have an arrive thing that says like all players put one Clank in the bag, or all players discard a card, something like that. But this game adds a new level to that, which are these event cards that come out and say to do something. They might have a rule that is in place for the next turn. They might have all players look for a certain thing in their hand right then and there. There's a lot more variability, more text than you can fit in that little arrive line on the cards. I don't think there's an example of that in the rulebook here, those event cards. But I have a video about event cards and event cards that I like and dislike, and I really like how smoothly these event cards are integrated into the system. It's not a separate deck that you have to remember to draw every turn, every round. Rather, it just, when you're refilling the card row at the end of each turn, which is very intuitive if you know Clank, those event cards can show up because they are disguised as regular adventure cards. So I really like the event card integration into the game, and I love this idea of if you already have a deck of cards that you're drawing from in a game, integrate the events into that deck. There are other games that do this, but it just really stood out in this game as being a very, very smooth integration. I'm glad they didn't add some other whole mechanism that you have to remember to do. They just integrated it into the core Clank system. I love legacy games and I love Clank, so obviously I am having a great time with this. The first game lasted a little bit longer than I thought it would. It lasted 3 hours to play, which is a lot long. That's like twice as long as regular Clank. So I'm hoping future games are a little bit shorter, but I didn't really mind the length because we were telling stories, we were adding to the board, we were doing all these things. We were reading from a storybook. Just a lot of cool stuff added without a lot of rules overhead, which I love. I love that when games do this, when they take an existing game and add a legacy game or a campaign game format to that game. So Anyway, not a review of Clank Legacy, but I'm really enjoying it so far. And if that event card system makes you think of any other games that do that well, or the little rule thing I mentioned at the beginning, if you have any other games that have that thing where they call out new rules in the rule book for people who already know one other version of that game, I'd love to hear your examples in the comments. Thanks.